Welcome to Natu Reads, an audio library of revolutionary texts. Scripting the Change. Selected writings of Anuradha Ghandy. Season Tendupatta. Pimp, the State. Gadchiroli. The forest appears quiet, as if the Adivasis there are leading an inactive life of ease. But as summer sets on, the seemingly quiet lives of the Adivasis develop into unrest, as pressure mounts on them for their labor, pressures exerted on them by the bureaucracy, filling their lives with fear, hope, and the questions on how to cope. Thus begins the Tendupatta Bidi leaf season, with which also starts the conflict between the Adivasi farmer workers' organizations and the state governments. A fresh wave of tussle commences between the two, and the picture of who is who starts becoming clear. Even before the season commences, the state government announces a month in advance its decision to deal toughly with the Naxalite-led tribal organizations. In the areas of South Chandrapur, Bamragar, and Alapalli, the state collects the Tendupatta with the collaboration of the Special Reserve Police, SRP. The policy of Tendu leaf collection through the forest contractors was changed in an attempt to strike a blow at the social and economic base of the Naxal movement. It may be borne in mind here that Tendu leaves are used for rolling bidis, a cheaper substitute for cigarettes. It is a very profitable product. Tendu trees are abundant in central India. These trees sprout new, pale green leaves in April during the spring season. They're culled and stockpiled at the nearby collection centers. After drying, they're sold to city-based bidi manufacturers on a weight basis. The workers who pick these leaves are paid according to bundles. The season is short, lasting for a month at the most. This is an additional income for the villagers, whose earnings are otherwise very meager. But at the same time, this phenomenon is an opportunity for the state forest departments and forest contractors to exploit the tribals and loot lakhs of rupees, thus intensifying the strife between the state and the contractors on the one side and the Adivasi labor on the other. Until 1969, the Maharashtra Forest Department used to auction these forests and place them in the hands of the forest contractors for a certain amount. The state would then not have any say in the price that these contractors paid and the number of leaves that they demanded per bundle. It would conveniently turn a blind eye as the contractors amassed a fortune by paying a paltry sum to the workers. It was in 1969 that the state began to market the Tendu leaves itself, under the pretext that the contractors exploited the forest dwellers, showing, apparently, that the state wanted to be kind and considerate to the Adivasis. Soon, however, the real purpose of the state behind the move was revealed. The state's revenue in this account had increased manifold, although there was no increase in the wage rate. The forest department reaped a rich harvest. The agency, too, only changed in name. The forest contractors now became the agents of the state. These agents started auctioning various forest areas, and the nexus of commission to the forest department per bundle of leaves was set up. The more the bundles, the more the income of the forest department, and thus of the government. The government, always in search of ways and means of converting and mortgaging its resources to international moneylenders and swindlers, while spending lavishly on its bureaucracy, found yet another forest resource to do this with. Last year, afraid that under the increasing influence of the Adivasi Kisan Shetkari Mazdur Sangharsh Samiti, the laborers may not collect the leaves, the government changed its policy again and allowed the contractors to deal directly with the leaf collection and also dole out paltry sums at their own mercy. At present, in spite of 18 battalions of the SRP and 3 talukas of Gadchiroli district, the Tendu workers' strike has not been affected. Until 1979 to 80, the wage rate was extremely low, about 3 to 4 rupees per 100 bundles. In 1981, after the growth of the movement, the rate became 4 rupees. In 1982, 5 rupees, and in 1983, it was made 6 rupee 40. In 1984, the rates were increased to 6 rupee 80 per 100 bundles. But when the contractors would experience labor scarcity, they would offer rates higher than those of the government. This alone explains the double-faced stance of the government, which merely increased its revenue by taking upon itself the task of marketing the tendu leaves. It must be noted here that as a result of the sincerity of tribal labor, influenced by the organization that evolved, there grew a political will in the Adivasi farm workers. It began in Sironcha and spread to Chodampalli in the north and Bamragad in the east, and up to the Abuchari Hills, as the tribal workers compelled the contractors to pay wages higher than the government. Until 1984, the government rate was a paltry 6 rupee 70, but the workers were now bargaining and settling for no less than 15 to 17 rupees. Even at this rate, the contractors have greatly profited. The Adivasi Kisan Sangharsh Samiti has calculated and prepared a balance sheet. In this way, left to themselves, the contractors profited, for example, 17 lakh rupees in only one area. But this year, the state has announced a rate of 10 rupees in the 3 areas of South Shanda, Bamragar, and Alapalli. The Forest Department purposely lowered the rate as there is now no middleman agency involved. The government is, thus, forcing the Adivasis to accept a lower rate, whereas they were earlier getting 15 to 17 rupees per 100 bundles. The government, harping on profits, is not satisfied with this rate too. As a forest officer, Bahadur said to a civil liberties team, quote, "Although the workers have obtained a higher collection rate through their struggles, we will not be in a position to pay the same." End quote. But this is only a half-truth. The ulterior motive of the state is to crush the movement, started under the Naxalite leadership among the Adivasi farm labor in the area. The reduction in a wage rate is a part of the plan. The government, both center and state, is highly worried about the growing influence of the CPIML People's War Group among the tribal population. The governments of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Orissa are coordinating in a planned manner to wipe out the Naxalite movement in these areas. The state cannot withstand the growth of a revolutionary ideology amongst the people. With an attitude like that of middlemen or dalals, and with profits as the motive, the state is willing to keep these sections backward and ignorant in order to facilitate their exploitation like bonded laborers. Thus, in order to break the hold of the Sangams, organization, and to evict the Naxalites from the area and wipe out their cadres, the state is employing various methods, like the reduction in labor rates, bringing in thousands of SRP personnel, and thereby taking the reins of the Tendupatta collection into its own hands. While 18 battalions of the SRP have been deployed in just 3 talukas of this region to keep a vigil, the workers collect the leaves at gunpoint. The collector had even publicly declared that in order to encourage the tribals to not collect the leaves, as the rates are low, the Naxal leaders would have to visit the villages, and would, thus, land in the authorities' net. The government has also claimed that it may lose a crore to wipe out the movement, but it prefers to bear with this loss. Thus, it is evident that the government will spend 3 lakh rupees per day on the SRP, but is not ready to raise the wages of the poor Adivasi people. The state will never tolerate the spread of a political spark. A student who was arrested during the Kamlapur conference was told by a police inspector, quote, "You may take out rallies, etc. in the city. In the forest, this just won't be tolerated." End quote. In other words, mere trade union activities like those of the tribal workers are not being allowed to take place. The police personnel, with their highly sophisticated weapons, are frequently seen in the villages in search of the leaders of the Sangharsh Samiti. They murdered Comrade Petty Shankar by spraying bullets on him in 1980. In March 1985, they did the same to Dharma, Ganpati, and Madhya Pradesh. What were their crimes? They were simply activists who moved among the Adivasis to explain to them how their innocence, as well as ignorance of their rights, were being taken advantage of to exploit them. They'd created an awareness among the Adivasis, organizing and uniting them to stand and fight against oppression. They had impressed upon them that the liberation of the poor would only be possible through the path of people's war and an agrarian revolution. They themselves hailed from poor families and had taught the poor to fight for a new society where man would not exploit man, and where the poor and toiling people themselves would be the rulers. Along with such activists, the ordinary villagers, too, are not spared from the brunt of repression. Apart from this, the government, having tempted a few villagers with some scraps, has weaned them away from their own comrades, making them informers and, in this way, tried to weaken the struggle. What an irony it is that the very same tribal people who were the traditional occupants and users of forest land, to whom the forests belong, are now being turned into mere laborers by the government, forcing them to collect the forest produce at the point of a gun. But the people are not silent. They are certainly organizing to protest and struggle against this injustice. There will surely be a fresh round of struggle this Tendu leaf season, as the Adivasi Kisan Shetmajur Sangathan has given the call. Adivasi, brother, it is time to rise. The time is ripe. Grab the sickle.